Before we begin, may I ask you all to silence and or shut off your phones so that we don't have them ringing in the middle of the meeting? I'll give you a second to do that. Okay, we're going to call the meeting to order on February 17th, 2022. Can we please all stand for a pledge to the flag? Bill, would you lead us in the pledge, please? Thank you. Barbara, roll call, please.
Roll call, President Lynn Tartaglia,
Here.
Vice President Barbara Milano,
Here.
Treasurer Janine Menard, Secretary Barbara Kowalski, Director Bill Hooks,
Present.
Director, I have you twice, Rich Gigliotti, and Director, I missed one. Oh,
Building.
sorry, Dave Sherwood.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Barbara. Could we also have the minutes presented for October 15, 18, 16, and January 6? That's October, November, December, and January.
Yes. Did all members have a chance to read the minutes?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And I did make the corrections that you sent me. So therefore, I'd like to make the motion that we accept these rather than read them all. And
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Second.
Any comments, questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, Barbara. Okay, President's report. I've got a few things here that I want to make sure we get to. I'm going to try and remind myself to, and where it's appropriate, to make the motion, get a second, then explain and talk through the issue. The first one that I would like to discuss is a discussion with the men's and the women's club. I would like to move that the board close the matters of financing for the recent landscape renovations at the front of the clubhouse donated by the men's and women's club without further action. May I have a second? Barbara Kowalski seconded. Just so folks know this, and it is a long time, covers a lot of territory, not going to get into a lot of the details, but the men's and women's club graciously donated landscaping work to be done out front of the clubhouse. I think it was actually 2 years ago. And in our discussions with that, the board was concerned at the time about, questions of who was going to do the work, what was the maintenance cost going to be, looking for a project plan, etc. After multiples of discussions with the men's and women's club, the board voted to approve accepting the gift from the men's and women's club and putting in the landscaping work that was done. We also, at that time, the board decided to make sure we tracked what the costs were that weren't borne by the men's and the women's club of doing that renovation and for maintenance. Not to be punitive, and it clearly came out that way, but it wasn't intended to be punitive. It was intended to be a learning experience. So we actually knew what the cost of the project was for future projects, so we would make sure that we were planning and prepared with money in the budget for those things, and if we weren't, to have a further discussion with the men's and women's club. We followed up the landscaping work with a letter to the men's and the women's club, asking them to consider whether or not they wouldn't consider financing more of what the costs were that were unexpected and not budgeted in that year. There was mixed reviews on the board about whether to do that. And at the end of the day, the board decided by majority that we should send a letter as such. And in my position, I was asked to write that letter to the men's and women's club. I didn't hear anything back from them, and so I considered it a closed issue. I'm not exactly sure why it came back up again this spring or this winter, but the subject did, and clearly we had not done an adequate job of closing the loop on that. So in order to, and it hurt some people's feelings. Some folks on both clubs felt as though the board was being unappreciative of the work that they'd done and the monies they'd raised and the effort that they'd put in, you know, sort of the gift horse, the gift horse in the mouth kind of a thing. It was never our intention to do that. We're just trying to do our fiduciary responsibilities, but I apologize if it came across as somehow being insulting to either of those clubs, who I believe I can speak for the board when I say we all hold those two clubs and their efforts and contributions in extremely high regard. So I would like to make this motion and ask that the board vote unanimously to put an end to this whole entire discussion, to say that it's not our intent to move forward at all with this, that it's done and over, and that we move on to repair and strengthen the relationship between the men's club and the women's club and the board. Because after all, as I said to the presidents of those clubs, whether it comes from the women's club, the men's club, or the board, it's all of our money. And all of us put that money in there, and all of us intended for that money to go for the right reasons. So if I could get any comments from the board at this point about the subject, I'd like to hear them and then move for a vote. Comments?
I totally agree that we should try to move on, and I think you're correct. We do appreciate those with the women's club and the men's club tremendously.
I just have a comment to add on what we're talking about. That first off is, yeah, moving on, and part of moving on is I'd like to thank the men's and women's clubs for the TV set that they donated, and the women's club has offered to put in a rug or a floor mat in front of the door because it's slippery up there. Okay, and we appreciate that. And there was one more thing, well, a bike rack. Our bike rack's rusty, and they've offered to replace that. So at the same time, I'd like to thank them for doing that. It kind of ties in with what they do. Okay, it's, you know, they do the extra work for us, and I appreciate that. And at the same time, I'm asking the board to accept their donations of those two parts. Thank you.
Are there any other comments? Let's have the vote first on the motion to end the conversation and the subject and any action on the previous letter about the landscaping in front. All in favor signal by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? We have a unanimous vote in acceptance of that, and I hope that both the men's and women's club can help us move on and establish that positive relationship going forward. There's somebody in the back of the room. I don't have my glasses on. There's a microphone up here, so you have to come to the microphone. Oh, it's Joan. Thank you. That was Joan Messler, president of the Women's Club in the back. She's not close to a microphone. She's being careful, but she thanked us, and we appreciate that, Joan. Thanks for your hard work. Second, Bill has made a motion to accept the gifts from the Women's Club of the bike rack and the mat in front of the door in the clubhouse. Can I have a second for that motion?
I'll second that.
Dave, was there three things? The mat. Oh, and an appreciation for the TV. That's amazing, folks. Thank you. So we have a motion by Bill to accept those three gifts. Do I have a second?
Second.
Dave seconds. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Okay. The next thing we're going to talk about is golf carts in the community. Once again, I'd like to make a motion, then explain the situation here, comments, and then vote. I'd like to make a motion that the board prohibit the use, charging, and storage of golf carts on Section 1 property. You have a second? Barbara Milano seconds. The reason I bring this up is recently we had a potential buyer come into the community, and she approached Barbara as she was considering putting a deposit on the unit, and said that she didn't drive a car, she drove a registered golf cart, electric golf cart, and wanted to make sure that we approved those in the community. And Barbara called me, and I know that Richard and I have had this conversation before, and perhaps with some other board members as well. It's long been the policy and protocol of the community not to allow golf carts to be kept and used in the community. And the reasons are pretty straightforward. Number one, these are private roads. We have no sidewalks. The lighting here is not the kind of lighting you would have on public maintained roads with streetlights and crosswalks, etc. We have a heavy influx of walkers, bikers, and folks, some of whom are disabled and use various equipment to facilitate moving about. And we are indeed at over 55 community. We have a large amount of cross traffic going through all the time. And we have enormous amounts of complaints about speeding, not stopping at stop signs, those kinds of things. Given all of that, and in addition, no places to charge these vehicles, electrical systems that are in many cases aging, and we have no idea whether they can take the added load of charging vehicles as well as the homes that they're in. All of those things put together seems to me like that's a great policy and protocol to have for section 1. But in my conversations again, I don't know of any place where that is written down. If it was voted on in a board meeting, you'd have to go back through all of the board meetings before us to try and find it, because it's not in the rules we live by or anything else. So I'd like to once again reaffirm that that is the community's desire, that we not allow for that additional traffic vehicle in the community. Comments from other board members?
I remember a couple years ago that we discussed it, and one of the other problems that we would have would be during hurricane season, and people were worried that we park our cars in between the buildings, and now you'd have a light vehicle that could be pushed around in a hurricane, and you'd have to put that in with the cars, and or they would have to take them somewhere. They can't get them in their house. So that was one of the problems that we had discussed.
Barbara?
As I understand it, the licensed golf carts can only go on roads that are 35 miles an hour or under. And right outside our main entrance, it's 45 miles an hour is the speed limit. So they couldn't even go out the front. They'd have to go out the back to Barwick. They'd have to go out the back to Barwick through all the other sections. Doesn't make sense to have them not be able to go out the front entrance and have them, it'd be a lot of. So that's another reason I think we shouldn't have them.
Thank you. Any other comments by the board? Any comments from the residents and owners? Hearing none, I'd like to move the motion, please. All in favor of prohibiting golf cart use, charging, and storage on section 1 property, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It moves. Thank you. The last thing I want to make sure that I mention here in my president's report, there's a lot of things to cover today. Recently, we all have seen the huge influx in social media as part of daily life. We've all seen the positive sides of all of these ways to communicate to large numbers of people by just sitting down and typing a quick message. I think, however, most of us would know that we've seen the negative side of that kind of social media, the canceling of people's lives and reputations, sometimes inappropriately and with incorrect information, and sometimes just out of plain old meanness. And I think when I was a young kid, my mother used to say, never put anything in writing that you wouldn't put on the front page of the local newspaper. I'm not sure, frankly, that men ever got that message because they weren't passing notes in the classroom. It was mostly us young girls who were passing notes about the boys sitting next to us. But nonetheless, I think that was wise advice, and I think it's ever more so now. Recently, we've had at least 2 incidences where a resident owner in our community who will remain nameless by me, has posted in very public forums on Google Review, a one-star review, and on a Delray Community Forum, which is a large local community chat on Facebook, very derogatory remarks about Section 1. And everyone has a right to their opinion. You don't have to like your neighbors or like the board, and it may be a lot of satisfaction for someone to irritate or piss off members of the board, or to, shame their neighbors appropriately or inappropriately. And it may feel really good to throw that out there and feel like you're giving someone a slap across the head. You have the right to do that as a member of the United States of America. However, I just ask that as human beings and as residents and community members, friends, and neighbors of the entirety of 248 units of this section, when people do that, it reflects very negatively on our community. And those of our friends and neighbors who may reach the point in their life where they need to sell their property may be negatively impacted by those kinds of comments in a public forum. Send a note to us. I'd be happy to read anything you want to put that isn't immoral, illegal, or unethical at one of these board members in a public forum for the Section 1 community members. But I don't believe that does anybody any good, and it certainly could do a lot of harm to property values and the reputations of the community to have those things posted on a wide public forum on the internet where it can be used and disseminated in a wide array. So that's my statement. It's not a movable vote or anything else. I just had a high need to say that those comments can be found on either of those websites, because the person clearly didn't hesitate to put their name on it. So, they have the right to do that. It's their opinion, and they have the right to be honest and above board. But, just let's ask ourselves and our neighbors to think before we write. Thank you. I think that's, and last one is office-specific emails for the board. We're working on that. I actually have a new email address. The purpose of this is to make sure that when I stop being the president and or stop being a member of the board, that all board communications are still kept and right there. And the next person who takes those roles just will use that same email address, rather than me trying to go through 2 or 3 years of communications and letters and documents, pull them off my personal email and print them out or something. So we're testing out mine right now. It's SEC1 Prez with a Z, so that SEC, and I'll send it out in a communication, SEC1 Prez, PREZ @yahoo.com. And that will be for me as long as I'm in the position, and then go to whomever comes after me. So please start to use that if you can. And Terry Marie will work with each of the rest of the board members over the next week or so to establish one for them as well, and they'll be posted on the website. All right, let's move on to the Vice President's report. Barbara?
So, I'm looking for the date. February 1st, High Point, Section 1 had a security committee meeting in our clubhouse, and Section 1, 2, 4, 5 attended. What we discussed was cameras at the entrance and exits, Section 1 guardhouse and Section 6 guardhouse. We also discussed Section 5 currently has a contract with a security group that drives around in a marked security car. They're unarmed, but they do it. I think it's on. But it's in their section only. So we discussed having a security company come in and drive around all 6 sections. And they suggested it being on Sunday night to Thursday night. Those are the nights. The weekends seem to be the homeowners are busier and out later on the weekend, so they don't seem to see as much problems on the weekends. So for those 5 nights, for 5 hours a night, so we're getting a quote, 2 quotes on that kind of contract with a security company. And that would be, the cost would be shared by all 6 sections, so it wouldn't be crazy. And also, Lynn and Patrick had noticed something out by our guard shack just the other day, and Lynn's going to tell you about that.
I think it actually was Bill. Bill noticed this strange addition to our community, and he and Patrick took a look at it, and then Patrick came over and got me. And you may notice it as you're leaving the community, right by the corner of the fence, the brick corner column there. There's about a 2.5 or 3 foot tall metal box with a big lock on it, and upon further inspection, it was determined that it was a camera, and it was it seemed to be lined up with license plates going out of the community. I'm not sure how Bill found out, but he found another one that was over at the front of section 6 onto Barwalk. So just a funny story, because I thought it was funny in retrospect. I told Patrick I was going to make a couple of calls to like section 6 to see if anybody knew who owned it. And if they didn't, that we would pull ours up anyways and bring it into the clubhouse, because you can't just go putting cameras on somebody else's property. In the meantime, I bent down sort of upside down in front of the camera and stuck my face in it and said, "Hi, this is the president of section 1. If you're looking for your camera, it's in the clubhouse. We don't allow people to just put cameras on our property." So off I went. I started making phone calls, and lo and behold, I get to one of the other sections, and he goes, "Well, maybe it was the police." And I said, "No, the police wouldn't put stuff on our property. It's private property." And they said, "Well, somewhere along the line, I think a lot of the communities signed an agreement with the city police that when it came to safety stuff, they didn't have to ask, they could just do it." Another one of those protocols that was a good one, but 5 or 10 generations later on the board, we don't all know that it happened. And so I thought, couldn't be, could it? Well, sure enough, I called the police. They gave me the detective in charge, and the guy said, "Hi, my name is Detective Sergeant." I said, "Hi, Detective Sergeant. Should I call you Detective or Sergeant?" He said, "No, that's my name, Sergeant, Detective Sergeant." In any case, it was theirs. There are actually 4 of them. I'm trying to keep Barbara Milano from starting a contest to find the other 2 somewhere in the communities. But just in case you see them, that is what's going on. He did share his information with me, and a few other points. Listen, be careful. It doesn't appear that these people who are doing these things are out to hurt anybody, physically. But if you decide you want to be a walker in the dark and you bump into someone, you scare them, they get afraid, you don't know. So, be careful. If you're out there walking at night, use a flashlight, make sure people can see you, they can see you coming. If you see something, please say something. He assures me that this is such a significant issue, particularly in these communities, ungated communities around Delray City, that they will have an unmarked or a marked cruiser here momentarily from a call, especially if it's during the nighttime hours. If you've got cameras that are out front and are taking pictures, please take a look at them and make sure, especially if something happens in front of your home, and make sure that they're aimed so they can catch as much of that as possible. But the important thing is lock your cars. I know that everybody talks about San Francisco where they put the trunks up and the doors open. We have had one case, the very first one we've had in a long time, early in the season over on the corner of the boulevard, where they broke into 5 cars. 2 of the cars were locked and they broke the windows. The other 3 were unlocked and they didn't break the windows. They just took what they had. knock on wood, we haven't had any other break-ins. It's been all cars that have been left unlocked. They go in, they're not looking for golf clubs and stuff. They're looking for cords and phones, money, that kind of stuff. But they do rifle the papers, and if you've got personal information, you know, a bank account statement or something that you're leaving in the front seat, because that's where you did your mail today. I mean, just leave your cars as empty as possible and lock your cars. And we listen, they're looking, so they are taking license tags of people leaving here and between the hours of 11 and 6, I think he said. But we believe, based on some discussions and experiences in the community, that some of these folks are coming in walking. They got roller bags, you know, the roller suitcases behind them. They got big trash bags, and they are, you know, it's a nice, easy way to stuff a couple of things into a roller bag and say, oh, I'm just walking through, cutting through to Barwick. That's all. And so they come in with an empty bag and everything they get along the way. And it's a quick, easy check of a door and throw some stuff in there. So heads up, lock your cars, keep your eyes open, call the police. Not just if you've been broken into. If you see something, say something, call the police, and they will come out and check, and we'll all be, once we annoy them enough, it will help. Patrick, by the way, is working to fix a hole. It's not a hole, it's a piece of chicken wire fence that was supposed to get fixed when we redid the front of the community, and somehow it fell through the cracks, but they're jumping over the fence at the front of the entranceway. We're also looking along the back of the terrace where it bumps up against the first encounter units, because it looks like the fence is bent as though people are jumping over the fence and coming through there. And we're looking at those to shore up the fence along there. But I think it's also time to consider doing something that we would never do at our homes, and that's plant maybe some tree lines of bougainvillea or something with some nice big sharp needles and thorns on it to disincentivize people coming over. So thank you, Barbara. And thanks for the hard work. I look forward to hearing the rest of the thoughts and ideas on the
Yeah,
security.
I just have a comment. Somebody in our community's car was broken into in the last month, and they took everything out of the glove box. So the registration, the title, everything. So, you know, if you're out of state, that makes it tough to get reissued. And the car was unlocked.
Yeah, good point. You know, those of you who know how to use the cameras on your telephone, it's always a good idea just to take a picture of your registration and your insurance card. So, you know, you don't even need the paper anymore. You can show it to the police when you stop. They'll look at it and use it. But in case you lose it, then you've got a copy on your phone to go back and get a new one.
Thank-
Any other comments or questions or? Okay, thanks, Barbara. Can I have a motion to accept Barbara's report? Oh, you're not done, Barbara?
Yeah, I'm done.
I'm sorry. No.
I'm done.
Oh, she's done. She's done.
Oh, wait. Where's the agenda? Oh, phone book.
Oh, phone
sorry,
book.
Sorry. Pat Lynch and Terry Marie and Dwayne have made up a new phone book, but we're going to be calling everybody's phone number that we have to make sure we put the one that they want in the phone book, because some people have multiple phones. And if you want more than one phone number in the book, you can tell whoever calls you. But I'm looking for volunteers, and this table looks like a good group. You don't have to call everybody, just a couple pages. So, all right, thank you. And Barbara Acker's also working on the advertisements. So a lot of the advertisements will be changing, I think, in the back. So
Intent to put that
Oh, yes.
on the website, right?
it'll be on the website, and you'll also get a hard copy. So,
Right.
and it will, on the website, Terry and we will update it. It'll be accurate, because these get out of date pretty quick. So thank you.
Great.
Thanks for pointing that out.
A motion to accept Barbara Milano's report. Richard, can I have a second? Bill, all in favor, say aye. Opposed? Thank you, Barbara. Treasurer's report, Janine?
All right, good morning. Finances for the end of December 2021. We're waiting still for a final audit, but the information we have thus far is that we do have a slight balance that was not spent of $3,618. That was cutting it pretty close, eh? And that money, as I noted at the last meeting, we intend to use that money towards the insurance. So now getting to the insurance, we have a final bill that did come in after much negotiation with our new company, Franklin Hamilton Insurance. They looked at various vendors and came in with some changes on some of our property or all of our insurance things. Property cost was up about 34,000. That's the only one that had sort of a bigger amount. And liability was up a little bit. The director officer up, and this says up. It's close. It's like $2,500. It's either. Okay. Then this. Oh. Crime, that was adjusted to cover a $1 million limit due to we have to cover the amount of our reserves, correct? Okay, so there's a couple of incremental insurances that are not included in the main policy, like workers' comp, special risk. Special risk is only $340. And then we have a smaller pollution insurance plan. So in total, the bill was, it's 17% higher than last year. We're paying $226,000 or $226,196 and 36 cents. And that is payable in a week or more. We're going to hand deliver that so that we make sure it doesn't get stuck in the mail and they don't get it. So we'll make sure that that's paid. So in order to pay this $226,000, we have our insurance banking account that includes the payment that we have in January. You know how we go through the year and we pay in February 1st. So we have to include one January of this year towards the payment. And that total would be $206,875.30. So it covered that amount, leaving us with $19,321 to find money from somewhere to pay. That remainder, our plan is to use the $3,618 that we had over, put that towards the insurance. It's a little bit, but we have to pay this bill, leaving $15,703 that we are going to pay through the emergency fund. In the emergency fund, we have presently $56,874. So, oh, one moment. Emergency fund. Was it 56? Oh, so 56,874. And deduct 15,703 from that, and that's what we have left in our emergency money market. Let me see if I forgot anything. The 2023 is budgeted for $248,500. So hopefully we'll see what, we're above what we're paying this year. And hopefully that's not going to go, we'll be in good shape when it comes to for 2024 payments. Did I miss anything?
I don't think so. Any comments from the other members of the board? I think it's good news. I mean, relatively speaking, would have been nicer if it was a zero increase or a reduction, but I think we've seen the last of those days, especially in this financial market. But if you recall, our prior agent first came in at 20 and then came in at 12 to 15% as his guesstimate. And the person with whom we're doing business now came in at 20 to 30%. And so the 17% it ended up is kind of right in the middle of the two, which is good. I mean, you know, it works out for us that they were able to do that. We have the increases in the places that we always have them in terms of property and liability, but we did see a reduction in director and officer by 2,500, and we saw a decrease of equipment breakdown of 2,000 because our new property insurance includes that in its coverage. So those are two places where we were able to save money rather than to spend it. So, you know, we wish it could be more, but it's not. And we'll have some money this year to put into the insurance to start to build up that fund again in hopes that we can get it back to where we have that safety net that we all would prefer to work with, and we can limit any adjustments we have to make to monthly assessments in the years ahead. So thank you very much to everybody involved, and thanks for the support of the community in making that problem solvable. All right, anything else, Janine? Okay, can I have a motion to accept the treasurer's report, please? Barbara Milano makes a motion. May I have a second? Second by Dave. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Who's next? I don't have my paper in front of me. That would be Director of Buildings, Appurtenances, and Exterior Plantings. Let me just mention that as of February 15th, Dave, who's done yeoman's work in picking up the exterior plantings coverage for me because I was doing grounds and presidency work and was drowning, has been able to transition that responsibility to Barbara Kowalski. And I think the paperwork has by and large now been transferred, and you know, discussions will continue. So if you've been working with Dave, he'll transition that responsibility to Barbara, and Barbara will now be the point person. That's for all requests for doing exterior landscaping and patios, and she'll be the person that is far more knowledgeable about plants and planting and landscaping than I ever would be. Dave, thank you for your hard work and
You're
for,
welcome. Thank you.
for carrying the load. I appreciate it. Okay.
Okay, good morning. All right, so for 2022, the doors, I've been in contact with the contractor. It looks like it's going to be April timeframe for the doors when they come in, and then I'll start scheduling. There's like only like 10 or 11 doors. So I'll be scheduling the people that have the doors, that need the doors, within the time frame that when we're ready to install them. So we're going to try and do like 2 doors a day, and it'll probably take a week to do it. So that's for 2022. For 2023 doors, obviously, if you have an old door that you want to have replaced, please put them in the maintenance request or on the maintenance request form, and then put them in the office, and I'll get them. What I'm trying to do is kind of set a date, since October is when we kind of start going into our budgeting. So like September, the end of September, September the 30th, if I could get those by then, that's kind of going to be the cutoff date for me at least, so I can get them ordered and then they're here on time. That's the doors. Lapel mics. I was asked to get quotes and stuff for new lapel mics. I gave all the some copies to the board members here. So there should be like 3 of them. I know, right? Yeah, there's one for the 2 of them are really close. They don't have. One is made by Win-Win, and the other one's called, it's an off-brand name with no name at all. And then we have a Pile, which is the system we use right now. Pile, you'll see is at the very end because it's the most expensive. So if you want to look that over, and maybe next meeting we can make a decision on when you want to if you want to purchase these or not. These are going to have lapel mics. They're also going to have headphones, so everybody like this can hear us. So they won't have to worry about picking up the mic, and everybody, when you hear, making motions, secondaries, you're going to hear everything over the speakers.
It's not only the speakers, it's the Zoom
And
that
the
I
Zoom,
worry
that's
about
right. And the
because
Zoom.
we don't talk into the mic and I don't know. You're all looking down. I can't tell who's making a motion and who's
I
not.
like how she says you all are looking
Yeah.
at,
I'm looking at the Zoom at the top.
So
and you're not talking in your microphone right now.
my recommendation right now is the first page. It's for $349 for the whole system. It's an 8-channel lavalier and headset system, and it's very, very, very similar to the system we have in here right now that we're using.
Did two things. How will we accommodate audience participation with the lavalier process? Can you marry both the microphones and the lavaliers?
Probably could. Yeah. In fact, since there is going to be another, I could probably tie that in. There's still going to be 8 of these. So, 8 microphones. We probably can tie it in through here at the podium.
It would be the same as what you have now. You have a receiver in there for your microphones
Right.
that we're using now. You'd have a new receiver for lapel microphones.
So you'd have both systems.
You'd
Yeah.
have the 2 systems just as you have now.
Or we may be able to tie.
And you wouldn't use these. You would use just the lapel mics. That's all you would use.
Right.
So
Right,
if you
right.
have any other function here, you wouldn't be able to have a microphone
and what,
other than hardwired mics.
and what could be also another possibility, like I said, if we can tie these in, use this microphone. That
Okay.
is another possibility. We'll have to see if the frequencies are correct.
Any check of the reviews?
Yeah, can we hold this off until next month so we can really
Sure.
get into more of it?
Yeah, I already said that, yes.
So I just want like everybody. Can't. I have no idea what was said.
For entertainment,
So we got it. We got to all use a microphone. So when we use the microphone for entertainment, what?
We have entertainment come in.
see how
Can you
this
speak
is
into
going to
the
work?
microphone?
See how great this
This
is going to
is
work?
like an exercise in madness
I know,
right here.
Well, we would
Wait,
still
yeah,
wait.
let's go ahead.
We would still have the hardline microphones.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
The system that will not accommodate 2 new systems. We already have 1 system in there,
Right.
and there's no more accommodation in the pickup for a second one.
Right.
So these microphones would not be available to be used. Okay, the only thing you would
Unless,
have would be the hardwired microphones, and you would have the lapel microphone.
Okay, no, that's unless you can tie these microphones frequency wise into the new system, then they would be, yeah, you could
You
use,
can, but the main system, as far as I remember,
yeah,
when I did this, the main system does not have the capacity to accept another system, 2 systems. It'll accept the 1, which we have. And if we're going to replace that one, you may not have another selection to put the second system in there.
So I'd
can work-
like
I
to,
can work
first of
with
all, I have a couple of questions. Maybe they're rhetorical. The first one is, I think, I'm interested to know whether by selecting the pile, which is $150 more than the other 2, but is the same brand as the current system, whether or not Pile has figured out a way to marry those 2 systems, whether there's something since when Richard bought them and last checked, whether they've come up with a lot of places have done that to try to tie old systems to new systems so that you don't have to throw one away. So if Dave, I'd like to ask you to see if you can get a hold of Pile and figure out if there's a way to coordinate those 2, because that would make a difference for me
to see if we can
in
tie in the
which
microphone.
system
Right, tying
to
these
use.
microphones perhaps with the new system.
with this
Mhm.
Pile lavalier. And we should all take a look on, I assume these are Amazons? These are Amazon snapshots?
Yes, they're from
So
Amazon.
on each one of them, there's likely to be reviews.
Okay.
So let's get on their board and look at the reviews and see for quality. Have you had a chance to do that yet?
No.
All right, good. So let's ask people to get on there and take a look at all three systems. And I hate to wait a whole nother month for this thing, you know. I'd like to know if some board expert tell me if this is possible. Can we move a vote to buy a new lavalier system out of one of these three and contingent upon, the board members reviewing the data and coming back? Or do we have to wait until the next board meeting and then we'll order them and then the season will be over and, we'll have
I
lost a
think
couple more
that's,
months?
I think that's possible. I'm sure it's possible. I think we've done it. Contingent on,
So Bob Messler says as parliamentary procedure, you can do that. I can do it. I can do it. All right, well, then I'm going to make a motion that we approve the purchase of lavalier microphones out of the selection contingent upon the review by each board member and satisfactorily answering any questions that the board members might have for
Okay.
Dave, who's point person on this.
Sure.
If you need any assistance or anything else, reach out to us and we can help.
Okay, great.
I'll second.
I think 498 is the maximum on this. So,
Well,
so
plus-
let me say, I'm gonna say,
Yeah,
so
plus
here's my
tax.
motion is up to 550 in case we have to buy something that attaches the two systems. If it's more than the 550, then we will,
Reevaluate.
then we'll reevaluate it and come before the community. That's my motion.
We have a,
Hold on, let me just move the motion and then we'll take Jerry's comment. Motion? You have a second?
Second.
Dave, who I did? Oh, okay. Jerry,
I just have a question. How will this affect the men's and the women's club? Because at the women's club, if you're going to have individual mics, lapel things for you all, when we have a women's club meeting, we were not able to hear all the comments that were being said from the vice president and the other people, because we didn't have a microphone set up for us, which should have been set up for us whenever we have a women's club meeting automatically. It always used to be. So
I think
if you're going to have lapel for you all, and I know you're looking into combining two things together, if it cannot be done, what are we going to do when we have meetings and we cannot hear people talking?
well, so it's I think the only gap between the men's and women's clubs using the systems is knowledge. And so it probably means training a couple of folks from the women's club and Terry Marie will come up to speed on it. She's already up to speed on this to get it set up. And I mean, it's not a lapel that I get one and it's my lapel. It's their microphones just like this that the women's club and the men's club that own 248th of each of those systems, just like we do. And they're more than welcome to use it. Whether we can have someone here every time there's a meeting to set it up is questionable. So I'd suggest getting a couple of people. They're not that difficult.
Well, it
No, they're
shouldn't
not.
really be questionable, because I know Richard in the past, for all the years he was in charge of the clubhouse, he always had it set up for the women's club. And it's always been the responsibility of the person who is in charge of the clubhouse to take that role on themselves. So the women don't really have the knowledge of all those microphones, and take all that into consideration. That's
Yeah,
all I'm asking.
Happy to
Okay,
take it into consideration and we'll figure it out. We got an election coming next month and we're going to figure out who's going to be in charge of what then. But I still think the more people who know how to use the system, the better. We have people who travel, people who get sick, people who aren't available. They have doctors and meetings and other things. So if the more people that know how to use that system and can do it and set it up for a meeting, I think it's a good way of making sure that you always have access to using whatever systems that we have. So motion is made, second is made, hearing no other further comments. Can I have all in favor, say aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. That's a maximum of 550, Barbara, okay? All right, thank you, Dave. Do you have any other issues?
Nope, that covers everything. Thank you.
Great. Can I have a motion to accept Dave's report, please? Second. Bill Barbara? Okay, all in favor, say aye. Opposed? Great. Okay, moving on to the next, which is lawns and gardens. First thing first, Santina, are you here? Can you go to the microphone, please? Santina has been working on Christmas palms. You know, many of you know that we've on several occasions in the past, Delray Gardens has offered to sell us Christmas palms for limited locations in our community at the owner's expense. And Santina's been working to get another shot at getting some more of those pines, and she's just going to give us an update on where she is. Santina?
Yes. Good morning, everybody. I have spoken to Bob at Delray Gardens, and he has offered us, it's not on? How about now? Okay. All right. So I spoke to Bob at Delray Gardens about the Christmas tree planting. And after a couple of weeks of negotiating, we came up with $250 for 8 to 10 foot triple Christmas tree palms. So the installation of these palms, he will be charging for, but the way that we negotiated would be a $250 charge for no matter how many trees we plant. So the more trees we sell, the less the installation will be. So if we sell 10 trees, then it's just $25 to have it planted. And I'm hoping that we could get more than 10 trees. The thing is that if you notice the planting that we did over here, they just look amazing. I know it's a lot of money, $250 for people, but if you're interested in beautifying your yard with this, I have a sign-in sheet, and this will at least give me some kind of idea on how many people are really interested in doing this. Because if we don't get a big response, then I would have to talk to the individual people about how they feel about splitting that $250. I think I could get it a little less if there's only 2 or 3 people, but I'm hoping that we could get more than 10. So I'm going to leave this on the table if you're interested. I'm also going to put my phone number on here so you can call me and let me know if you are interested. And of course, all plantings would have to be approved by the board in the location that you pick before we go ahead and break ground. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Just a comment. In the past, what we did was we limited 1 tree per building, but we also said they were going to be in a line. So when they cut the grass,
Correct,
they're not waving back and forth.
correct.
Yeah, one per building, unit. Okay. And
Well, I don't know if side units would still, like a D and an A unit would still be under that 1 tree planting.
All planting will be pre-approved with the
Correct.
planting lawns and gardens and or designee, which in this case would probably be Barbara Kowalski. We are limiting where those locations are, but we'll look at every location and go on a case by case. But we want to be fair, we want to be reasonable and equitable to people. But we have to remember that every time you put something in the ground, the lawn people have to figure out a way to get around it and to maintain it and to weed whack and all of that other stuff. So we'll follow the pre-approval planting process, and hopefully that holds us in good stead, right? There were other
Yes.
questions?
Anybody have any
Board?
questions?
Barbara
I
Milano.
think maybe, Madam President could do a master blaster email to everyone on one of your emails. and tell them about this offer? Yeah. Because when put it on 97, a lot of people don't look at 97 all the time. But yeah, yeah.
And a lot of people
Sure,
that
I'll work with
weren't here for
Santina to get
COVID
that
wanted
out,
one,
get the,
and they
on an
didn't know
email
that.
communication to everybody. We'll get the right information out, make sure that they all have it. They know how to get a hold of you and what to do, all right?
Okay. If anybody wants to see the exact tree, I have planted one in the back of my house that is the 8 to 10 footer and the triple. And you could feel free to come and look at it so that you know exactly what you're purchasing. And I'm at 222D. So if
Thank
you have
you.
any questions, feel free to call me or contact me.
Also, our checks would be written out to the clubhouse, right, association. And that would be one check cut to Bob.
Correct. Yes, that would be one other thing. If we could get one, we're agreed that we're going to get the check written to the association. And then the association will pay Delray Gardens with one check.
Madam Treasurer, that's to you. They would like to have all the checks written to High Point Section 1, and you will cut one check for the whole thing. Doable.
That would be great. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Santina. Appreciate the work. I think we've already, I think we talked about the transition about patios and lawn plantings around the perimeters of the buildings to Barbara Kowalski. I want to make sure that I'm going to plead with both Barbara and Pat Lynch, who are the board director and the partner on real estate sales and rentals, that in all of the interview processes, we need to be more emphatically clear, to the point of perhaps having people sign off a checklist about things like what they're allowed to do in terms of planting. It's causing a lot of problems. And trust me, the last thing I want to do is be out there arguing with somebody who wants to put their hard-earned money and savings into beautifying this place and telling them they got to rip it out or they can't do it. But in fact, I've been involved in some of those conversations recently, and it's painful. It's painful for the owners. It's painful for me. You know, I'm sure I'm not winning any personality contests. And while it's not what my job is, I still don't like to have people not like me for something like that. And it's so avoidable. It's so avoidable. We need people to understand that everything from your interior walls out in this community is called community common element property. It doesn't belong to the homeowner. In spite of the fact that you've bought a unit, you've bought from the walls in, from the walls out, including the grounds, all belongs to the community. And as such, our community documents and rules and declarations have appointed the board of directors to have responsibility for how that stuff is used. And the rules haven't really changed. They've been in place since inception, that if you want to plant things outside, they have to be within certain parameters, and they are required to get a pre-approval for that planting before it goes in the ground. I don't want to pull up plants. I don't want to make people redo things, but we need people to follow the rules. So the best thing to do is to get in touch with the board. On the website or on in the library are copies of the pre-approval form. It needs to be detailed. It needs to be specific. But even if you don't put the details on it, doesn't mean the rules don't apply. You cannot move sprinklers. If you need sprinklers moved because of work you've been done and the board has approved the work, you will arrange with the board, the person who's in charge of that, which is the grounds person, to have our technicians do it, and it will be at your expense. So it will be an hourly charge for that work to be done. And we may have to ask someone, if it's difficult, we may have to ask an outside person to do it. You'll have the final say on whether you want to do it and pay for it. But if there's a cost, that is going to be a cost borne by you as part of the renovation. You can't go further than 4 feet out. We have many units where over the last 30 years, the plantings that they've put in, which are also an issue, have grown far beyond the 4-foot limit. When you rip those out, You don't get to go that far out again. You go back to the original 4 feet maximum because the sprinklers get buried under those huge plants. They don't reach, the water doesn't reach the lawns and the rest of the community property. And thus we have stuff dying out there all the time, people complaining about side lawns along their driveways, etc., being dead. But if you go look for the sprinklers, they're buried. And, I won't say it's not all the homeowners' faults. I mean, number one, we have not always been as careful as we should be in the maintenance of those kinds of things. That's, I think, with the onset of an extra set of hands out there 3 days a week, I think we've made some progress in that. But we're not going to live by what has happened before. We're going to live by what should be happening going forward. And that means sprinklers need free rein to water a wide array of lawn and plantings so that the entire community is properly taken care of. We're going to maintain a guideline and a handle on what you put in. We're Bougainvillea, we may go right along that back fence because that's the right thing to do to keep some nasties out of here. But Bougainvillea is a pain in the neck. It overgrows everything, especially if you're leaving for summers. Next thing you know, it's hanging out over the lawns. It's got needles on it. It scrapes the lawn workers and the yard maintenance people. There are some things that people want to put in, is it oleander, that are toxic. They're beautiful, but they're toxic. And they're toxic for humans and for animals. And a lot of people don't know that. And some of the landscapers won't tell you that because it's a nice little plant to sell. It looks pretty and that's what they get paid for. So we're going to manage that stuff as best we can without being draconian. And that is the balance, right? Is how do you manage that stuff so everybody's happy without being, the Third Reich and trying to make people's, have to ask permission for every blade of grass. So please, Barbara, I'm asking you and Pat to, when you're having the conversations in those interviews, to really drive home those points. And I know you guys have been working on paperwork. The more things we can have people sign off and say, yes, I read that I can't do this without pre-approval, the better off we are in our conversations later on. Done. Can I have a motion to accept my report? Barbara Milano, second. Janine, all in favor? Opposed? Bill, pool and clubhouse, please.
Okay, first we'll talk about the pool heaters. I think that's the big topic. As you know, we've been having trouble keeping the pool warm. One of the 2 heaters is broken. And these things are 13 years old. So we're looking at cost to replace them. In the past 5 years, we've spent $17,000 on the pool heaters, and that's a lot of money. So I think it's well past time. One request was when they came in and looked at the heaters, they kind of questioned the electric, if we had proper electricity going in there. And so we did have an electrician come in and check the system out, and the electricians did not think there was a problem with the heaters because of that. But they did see a lot of problems with the way we were hooked up on electric. A lot of circuits were jumped, so we had two or three wires on some of those. So we really need to update that system. And as we talk about that, in thinking about things that have happened, we've had TVs go out, both TVs with surge protectors. The freezer went bad. I'm just wondering, is this linked together? I don't know, but what I did look at is, and I'll go over it. First off, is I've got a cost to update our electric units, and that is $2,800 to do that, and that's to basically replace 100 amp feeders, sub panels, and repair the double tags that they have hooked up, new surge protectors. So I think that's one thing that we definitely need to do. The other thing is, since we're only running 1 heater on the pool and not 2, the suggestion was made that you're going to burn it up if you keep it running all the time. If the temperature gets below 65, they recommend shutting it off. And that's what we've been doing. We've been shutting the heater off if the temperature's going below 65 for any length of time, or a rainy day all day, anything to save it, because we're running on one heater. It takes two to really maintain it. So right now we're doing that, and then instead of changing the compressor again, which is going to cost about $3,000, we put, I don't know, Richard, how many have we put in there over the time? Probably three, okay. So we're not looking at that. The concern is the guy who manages the company who does it. He said he's got 40,000 of these heaters out, and we have the only one that's had the problems with compressors. So he's kicking it back to the electro system, but the electricians don't see the problem happening. So I asked for the cost to replace them. I don't want to keep throwing money away. And the technicians were saying, we put them in about $18,000. Well, that was in the day. The quote we got now is $22,938. And that includes a 5-year warranty. So I think, and Symbian, they got a monopoly. There aren't other people that install and maintain the heaters around here. You can't get that. And Santina did all the legwork on this. She was a blessing, as I had problems that I couldn't get involved. She took the lead on that. And so she's got more of an expertise on some of this than I do because of her hard work. So I appreciate that. And at the end of my talk, she gets a big hand. But I'm going to be. But
Yep.
no, I've got. So what I want to do is recommend that we look at the purchasing price to buy new heaters, and we also look at repairing the electrical. Okay, and
I have a question.
So,
yes,
Is that for
yeah.
2 heaters?
yes,
That's
for
for
both
two,
of them.
2 good new heaters.
New heaters,
It's a
yes.
full system, right?
It's a full system. And the other thing that's happening is I found out looking at the electrical, Patrick workshop, his little area out there, that's not even protected in the box. That's tapped off. So if there was a fire in there, it would keep going. I mean, we're not safe. So we got to get that
We
corrected.
have a huge number of new pieces of, computer equipment in here, and printers, scanners, and telephones, and, all kinds of stuff in here that, 20 years ago, you didn't have this kind of a draw on the electrical system. It's really, it's time to, and now, as we said, I mean, there were 2 TVs that blew out here. Dave was able to cobble some parts from one into the other. So that if we didn't have somebody that had this knowledge, we would have been looking and begging for some support to buy 2 TVs. As it is, he was able to get one back, but we've had way too many shorts, way too many problems, and it's time both for safety and for protecting our capital assets to get it looked at. I want to stick with just the pool and pool heaters for a few minutes,
Yeah.
Bill, if we can.
Okay, and one other thing with that is we did have FP&L come in, and they checked the electrical from the clock over, and they said that there wasn't a problem with their end of it either. So, okay, so I think there's going to be some questions, Bob.
Bob, please.
Yes, Bob. Bob Messler. Bob Messler, 380B. My professorial voice. There you go, Bob.
Right into the top.
Yeah, in a former life, I taught materials engineering and failure analysis. In a life before that, I did failure analysis in the aircraft industry, military aircraft, including crash investigations. I've done over 3,000 failure investigations and nine aircraft crash investigations. And so I do failure analysis. As a matter of fact, when I get home in April, late April, I'm to teach a course in failure analysis. One of the things you want to do is you want to see why these systems are failing. And you don't want to rely on your supplier to do that, because your supplier may be the one who is pushing that particular unit and won't tell you, oh, you know what the problem is? It's your electrical system, okay? But I'll tell you what the two big reasons in Florida, and I've looked into this, the two biggest reasons for the failure of heaters prematurely. Number one, excess chlorination, which is rampant in Florida because Floridians tend to run their pools warmer than other communities in other parts of the country. That means you need more chlorine. When you use more chlorine, the chlorine attacks the brass components in heaters and compressors and other devices through which it comes in contact. That can be easily recognized as what the problem is, if that's what the problem is. There's one way to deal with it, and that's not to knock your chlorine down, because you need the chlorine there. But you put a device before or right behind the chlorinator. I don't know that we have that, but that's one thing we should look at. The number two reason is low water flow, insufficient water flow. And there are three things that contribute to low water flow. Number one, biofouling. That's snotty stuff which forms in the lines from bacteria. And it happens in warm and humid climates. We've seen that before. As a matter of fact, when they do my air conditioning system every year, they blow out that drainage line and snotty stuff always comes out the end. I'm sorry, that's what it looks like. It's slimy and it comes out the end in a plug. That can happen in a closed loop system with a heat exchanger because it's not getting exchanged, okay? That has to be looked at on an annual basis, biofouling. The second reason is that you have improper or inoperative, improperly functioning pressure sensors, okay? So that it's not letting the water flow. And the third, I forget what the third thing is. Filters, pump baskets and filters, debris getting into the system. So pressure sensors, biofouling, and pumps and filters. We should be looking at those things to see why are our systems failing, because I happen to have talked to some people in some other sections. Nobody else is having problems like this with their pool. And I'm not casting aspersions at people that are doing this in section 1. We're not bad. We're not going to destroy our own system, but we're the only one that's having a problem with this. And that pool is almost identical to this pool. And all of the pools are the same size. All of the pools seem to be getting chlorinated to the same levels. All of them have heaters and compressors, and none of the other 5 are having this problem.
We're 13 years old. I don't know how old they are.
We're 13 years old, but we've had three replacements within those 13 years of compressors, yeah, and things like that. So I'm just saying.
Regardless, I think Bob's points are well made, that, and I think we've had similar, though not probably as informed, conversations that before we go spend $25,000 on new equipment, we got to dig in to figure out what, if anything, we can find that is causing these issues. And one of those ways is to make sure, as you did, get FPL in and check their lines, then get an electrician in and check the system that feeds into the pool, and now to look at electrical for the entire system, because whether it's the cause or not,
Right.
it is sort of an ancillary issue. But I think we also need to perhaps, I don't know what kind of person you hire, that it's not our pool company.
It
it's
wasn't
probably some other
the
person.
pool company came in and checked the electric. We had an electrician that came
No,
in.
I said in addition to
Right.
that, we need some kind of an expert who can come
Well,
in
we
and
had,
check
okay.
everything else.
We do have everything that Bob asked for in our
We
system.
do.
We have, Richard said we have the filters, we have the pressure sensors for the chlorine. We have all that in place. Now, the question is, are they working properly? Going back to Bob's point, that I think we need to check out.
I'd be happy to look at whatever parts you have that have failed. And I can tell you, not because I'm special, but I can look at it and tell you within minutes of why it failed. And
You are
it's called
special, Bob.
root cause analysis. When you go to the doctor, if the doctor doesn't find out what the root cause of your problem is, no medicine's going to make it better. No surgery is going to make it better. So you can't solve a problem if you don't know what the problem's from. So the first thing you got to do is find out, why are our systems failing prematurely? And then what we do about it.
Okay, can I make a recommendation to Bob and the board? I recommend that we get the people involved that's been around here. I'd recommend that Bob, Santina, Richard, and myself get on a committee to evaluate everything that we've done.
Thank you, Bob.
Thanks, Bob.
You got it, Tim.
You're in, Tim. Be careful what you wish for. Santina.
I definitely agree with Bob that we need to get to the problem of what is causing the compressors to blow. But I do not believe that it has anything to do with chlorination, because the pool pumps is where the chlorinated water goes through, not the heaters. The heaters heat the water in the reservoir pump, when the reservoir tank that is located in the pump room. So the new heaters are now made of titanium and not aluminum. And aluminum in the heat exchangers is what causes that goo to come out of the pipe, and why you have to clean it every year. And a lot of the new air conditioning systems are made with those aluminum fins, and that is what causes that goo. But these heaters have titanium in them, which does not cause that. So that is one of the comments I wanted to make about the chlorinated water, which this is off the wall, but you know, you can always consider going to salt water, and that would be good. So when I look at this problem with the heaters, I believe that blowing the compressor, and the way that I saw when they took the cover off, there was actually an explosion inside of the heaters. And the explosion happened with the compressors. So now if I'm going to do a process of elimination, I'm going to say that that is some kind of power surge or defective compressors. Something with the compressors, that the three of them we got, for some reason, something could have been wrong with them, or they could have been some kind of power surge. As far as the estimate that we got from the electrician with replacing the panel box that is by the pool, I would like Bill to ask the electrician why we couldn't add breakers to the existing power box to try to save money, or if we really do need a whole new power box.
So what great information, Santina, as with Bob's information, the ability of the two of you and others in the community to inform and educate the rest of us on something that's well beyond what I would normally understand is great, because you're both able to put it in a way that I can kind of understand and follow. What I would ask is that you get that committee together as quickly as possible, like
Right.
immediately, and begin to have those conversations, co-educate, and then come up with what's the right plan of action. Because, you know, we got it's a lot of money, but we also have a whole community whose winter is ticking by
Right.
with a very cold pool, and we got to decide what we can do and how we can do it as quickly as we can.
And I would love to sit down with you guys that are educated on this system and how this works, and perhaps we can come to some kind of conclusion on what's causing this problem before we go ahead and get these new pumps and spend this money. Because
Great.
you're right, we
Okay.
need to get to the root of the problem.
Great.
Yeah, you know,
Richard?
for the last 2 years, I guess, when these compressors started blowing, I've been on top of this and talking to a number of people. So I think the comment that Bill made, that he heard from Symbiont, that it's something to do outside of their compressor. Everybody I've talked to from Symbiont has always mentioned, well, we've having problems with the manufacturing of the compressors in the last 2 years. So when I hear that they're having a problem, but they're not willing to address it or make it known as much as we're having the problem. I mean, when we're going through 3 compressors in less than 2 years, and technicians and having different technicians here, and them telling me, oh, they're having problems. There's only one compressor maker in the country, and they're having problems with their parts. And then I gave Bill the card of one of the representatives from Symbiont. And yeah, and he was supposed to call Bill, but I don't think he ever did he? Yeah, you talked to him? Okay. But he said the same thing to me. He said, we're having problems with the compressors. And, as FPL having a problem? Yeah, I don't know how many people got calls that they're running drones. How many people have gotten calls that they're doing drones over our area to view all their wiring? So there could be just a combination of things. But, as we said, we need to get together and talk about it so we can find a good direction to go in. But,
Thank you.
according to Symbiont, there's only one compressor maker. And whether we're going to be, guaranteed for a warranty for 3 years, it should be for more than that. So it should be for more than that, especially if they're telling us that we're having a problem with the manufacturing of the compressors.
So let's, if we could, thanks, Richard, let's let you in the committee take this offline
Right.
and do a deep dive and come up with a series of recommendations, and we can recall a board meeting, a special board meeting with 48 hours notice, so that we don't have to wait on this to hear what your findings are and what your recommendations are going forward. The one very important thing that I want to bring up and discuss in this board meeting is the cost potentially, if we are, and I guess in my head until this conversation, I was sort of thinking that it was a fait accompli, that we were going to have to, replace this system. And just for purposes of this conversation, I'm going to continue with that train of thought. We now know that cost is right around $23,000. And if there are ancillary costs for electrical work or some other things, then using the number of $25,000 is not probably a bad number to wrap our heads around. And I know I've gotten calls from people who are extraordinarily worried after we just went through a painful change in our monthly association fees about where that money is going to come from. And so I want to explain what the current thinking is. We haven't had any open discussions about it, any formal discussions, but in looking at our financial situation, I just want to explain where we think we would go with this. And did you need to say something before I talk about money?
It's about money. I just wanted to say one thing about the cost of the heaters. I just want you to understand that because we are using this geothermal heating system on our pools, it is saving us between $8,000 and $10,000 a year versus propane heaters or electrical heaters. So I just want to let everyone plus Lynn know that going with the geothermal heaters is the best option for us. We can either grab heat from the ground, grab heat from the lake, or grab heat from the air. So since we are right by the lake, this is a win-win for us. And when Richard made the choice many years ago to switch over to geothermal, it was one of the best decisions to save us money and have a good system that costs less and is good for the environment. And now Lynn could take over with
Thank you.
how much it costs and
you.
everything, but I just wanted
Thanks.
you to know it
Listen.
does save money.
Saving $8,000 to $10,000 a year is only a good thing if you're not spending 9 to 11. Right? And right now, it's, it's about an even Steven right now. The savings and the spending on this system are about even Steven. And I'm not I don't know anything about them except for what Richard and you and Bill have told me. And that's probably as much as I'll ever know. But, having a single source supplier of these, having a single source supplier located on the West Coast with less than 2 technicians available at any given time on the East Coast have a cost benefit value as well. So, all of those things, again, I expect you guys will be looking at in your committee and talking about. But to get back to, if we have to put in a new system, and I believe we will, where the money comes from. So for once, we have, I think, a little good news if the community agrees to go in this direction. You all, I believe, are aware that in all the documents you get on a regular basis, we have a balance sheet. And on that balance sheet, it lists all of the reserves that the state of Florida requires 4 or 5 of them to be 4 of them to be established. We have more than 4. I think we have 5, but we have 4 that the state requires us to have. And our goal is to fully fund the full replacement of any one of those reserves. So we have reserves set up for the roofs, not just the clubhouse, every roof in the community, the roads, because the roads are private and they belong to us, the pool and the pool area, and the what? And the painting of the buildings on a regular basis. Okay. Now, I don't know about you, but it's been a long time since I know that we've had to replace all of the roofs all at one time. It's been a long time since we've had to replace all of the roads. We've never had to replace the entire pool, and we do the painting once every 8 years. So right now, do you have the balance sheet in front of you? What's the balance of the reserves at the moment? The whole thing. The whole thing. So we have about $800,000 in the combined reserves, and because we're supposed to, right? We're supposed to have that money in there. However, we haven't had to use that money with the exception of the painting money. We've used a couple of used it to do some fascias, but we put it back in. That's the goal. You take money out, you put it back in. But that money is all sitting in money markets. And that money market, those money markets have been pretty good, not huge, but pretty good for the last few years. And so we have an entrance balance on those reserve funds today of about $26,000. Now, the hook with that is you cannot use that interest money for anything except for something that's a reserve. So you can use it for roofs, you can use it for pools, you can use it for roads, you can use it for painting, and in our case, we have a 5th one, irrigation. You can't use it for that one, only for the 4. Thank you. Okay, so you can use it for those 4. So that's why we couldn't say at budget time, oh, we got $26,000 over here, let's use that for insurance. Because it's not an insurance, there is no insurance reserve, and you can't use the money for something that's not a reserve. But we can use that money for the pool. And so if and when the decision is made, and there's, how much is in the pool reserve? 34,000. Personally, again, this has to all be fleshed out and discussed ad infinitum with everybody in the room, because we have a lot of smart people. I personally shy away from the pool reserve itself because that money has to be replaced. If you take the money out, you got to replace it, and you got to be replacing it. Everything has a estimated life. We get a number from a professional company that says, here's how many more years you got left on each of those things. And then we just do the math to figure out how many years we got to fund that whole thing. So you take 25 out of the pool reserve, you're going to have to keep funding the pool reserve plus fund paying that 25,000 back. But if you take it out of the interest fund for the reserves, then that number comes down and then the rest of the interest continues to go back in there and it repools itself. So it's kind of a one-shot deal for a big expense like that. But for me, at least as far as I've been able to look, and I've had some conversations with Janine and with Barbara because we were up to our eyeballs in the budgets, and I consider us the finance subgroup. And so we've had a number of conversations about that. And so far, that's the only one that makes sense to me in terms of not upsetting the apple cart for the community. The pool is really our one and only amenity. The pool and the clubhouse, which I think of as one entity. It's what we offer people to come here and live here and enjoy the social community that we have. And so it's important, I think, for us to keep it going. So just as you go forward, please tell folks, there has not been, to my knowledge, certainly not anything that I have been involved with until I got a phone call from someone who was somewhat frantic. There has been no conversation that I'm aware of about an assessment, nor have I heard anybody say that they would even consider an assessment under anything but the most dire of calamities here. So please, if you're hearing those things, they're rumors and they are, someone said, what if somebody who doesn't know the financials and doesn't know the books thought, well, if we couldn't pay for insurance, then they're going to have to give us an assessment because there's no more money somewhere. I get it. That's people who aren't looking at the numbers every day. That can be things that you have in your head, but just put it to rest. At this point, there doesn't seem to be any reason to even engage in a conversation about assessments or any of that stuff, loans, none of that stuff in this particular situation. Okay, so I'm gonna hold off on asking for any kind of motion until we hear back, Bill, from you and your committee. But wait a minute, maybe what I say is, I pull that back. Time is of the essence. We have been told that if we want to order this geothermal system, it is a 6 to 8 week wait. That gets us to the end of the season. All right. And people are not going to be happy to hear that, nor am I. It's important that you all know that the longer that we wait to get some recommendations back in on what the problems are, what we need to do to mitigate those problems, and decide what we need to order to get that pool running, the better off we all will be. So time is of the essence. And as soon as you've got something for us, we'll call a meeting in 48 hours as we're required. In fact, I think we can have an emergency meeting in a shorter period of time, and I'll just check my facts on that, but we'll have it as quickly as possible to make a decision and go forward. In the meantime, I'm working with sections 2, 3, and 4 to establish reciprocals for the pool. If we're trying desperately to get this pool temperature up to a reasonable level. But until the weather cooperates, it's going to be difficult. I looked into solar covers with reels. It's about $850. I mean, that's something that this committee can consider. It's $850 to put one of those on there, and a pain in the neck to roll it up and unroll it and all that stuff. But it has its value on off seasons of keeping, off times of keeping the water warmer and keeping the temperature in without either the old system or the new system cranking. But it's just food for thought at this point. Any other comments about the pool, Bill? You want to wrap this up on anything you want to add to it?
Yeah, I'd like to just wrap this up. Obviously, maybe today or tomorrow for sure, we can get together and talk about it. Okay, I'll get everybody together and talk about where we're going and kind of wrap it up as soon as we can.
Do we need to make a motion to approve the 2,800 for the electrical work?
Yeah, I would think we should. Yeah, because electrical work, we need that anyhow. I think the motion should be to approve electrical work, make sure we get everything in order.
I make a motion that we approve the electrical work that is required to maintain its durability or its ability to help us.
Can I ask for that motion to be amended to direct that 2,800 come from the emergency fund?
Yeah. Yes.
Second,
Second.
Bill Hooks.
Okay.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. 2,800 from the emergency fund for
Oh,
electrical work.
Okay, and it's just a comment on the pool. We've had the temperature up to 82 degrees with the one heater last week when the sun was shining. So it will keep it if we don't go real cold at night. So, yeah, hopefully they stay there. Going on to the freezer, we had trouble with the freezer, going bad on it. I put ice in it. I put ice cubes in it. Put this full of water in it, and within 12 hours it froze. The temperature in there is reading 0. So right now, I'm saying let's keep an eye on the freezer, but I'm not recommending we spend money to do that. It would cost us about $1,000 to get a new one. I did get some quotes. Yeah, and if there's food in the, for meetings that people, we don't want to leave food in for 6-8 months. But if, we have events going on, put the food in there. If we do have a problem, then we might come back, and I guess I would ask, we might need to go back and, yeah, that's another conversation that we might have to go after. Okay. And I believe that's it.
I'll make a motion. We
Because,
accept
well,
Bill's report.
Scoreboards. He's got.
Dwight Eastman, 215A. Okay, Bill, I thought you were going to make a motion regarding the shuffleboard. We're looking at approximately $1,000 for all new boards out there. I leave it to you.
Yeah, if we would replace scoreboards out there, it is $1,000, and they talked about it before. And so I guess I'm asking, are we willing to spend $1,000 to do that? We have money. It's something.
Yeah, I remember last month we said it was contingent on what the insurance balance would be.
We said insurance, and yeah, we also talked about it at the men's club and everything else, and it was brought out that they thought we would be able to do it here.
So we never thought there was going to be extra insurance money like floating around. What we did say is we could get crushed by it and use all of the emergency money and look for every spare dollar to pay for it. And I think the answer is we did not have to do that. And I think we can find $1,000 amongst the accounts of the community to find $100 in the budget to pay for that, $1,000 rather in the budget to pay for that. Again, that's my opinion. So the question is, Bill, are you making a motion to give $1,000 towards?
Yeah. Any discussion on making a motion to replace the scoreboards?
Barbara seconds. Any conversations? Say aye. Opposed? Ayes have it.
Wasn't
Thanks
there,
for.
last month, there was something else we said, there was something else that somebody was considering they needed money for.
Taken care of. There was the baskets.
We also did.
Oh, yeah, we need those. Another one broke yesterday.
Right.
There-
I've ordered. Those already. I ordered 15. We had 12 before. Now we have 13. We had approval to go forward with that. So I made that, and I confirmed with the lady today, and she hasn't got the order from the guy yet. And they need 50% down when we do that. But it's just what we're doing is we're getting the materials, and it's going to be fit. I'm gonna get with Patrick and we're gonna have to put them together ourselves and save some money.
Janine, I'm hoping you will keep track of these, death by 1,000 cuts. I mean, these things are all good one at a time, but we need to keep track of these, each individual thing that sounds like a reasonable little thing, and they add up. If you have 100 of those 100,000 little things, it's $100,000. So can you try and keep a track of that so we don't get in trouble later on in the year? I usually like to wait until about July before we do some of these things, so we have sort of a lay of the land. But it's been a rough time for everybody the last couple of years to do a couple of things that makes people happy, and especially when they don't have a nice warm toasty pool to swim in. I think it's the right thing to do. Moving on to sales and leases with Barbara. What? We didn't approve Bill's report? Oh my. It's a good
Yeah, we
thing
did,
got-
didn't we?
We made the motion, but we didn't approve it. I think Bill said one more thing.
Um,
Approve, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you, Bill. Barbara Milano.
Okay, so we do have another condo for sale to B unit, and they already have a contract. It's on, the 110B is under contract. So there is a full-time lease available. It's a 2-bedroom. It's furnished. It will not be available till May, but the homeowner is looking for a full-time renter. So if you know anyone.
The replacement of the other renter
It's the replacement of
for the people who are buying the new unit.
No, it's
That's
the
different.
replacement of a seasonal renter. It's the Alberts at 192A unit. It's on High Point Terrace.
Yeah, but so do we need an exception for that? Because isn't that like the third time in a year or a year and a half that he's renting that out?
It hasn't been that many. No, he had a full-time renter in there for a couple, like 2 or 3 years. Then he
So
had
is this a different unit than another unit that Albert got?
he has 2 units.
Right, he's in one, but in the other one, he had a full-time renter who left in the middle of the year, and you came in front of the board and asked for an exception so that he could rent it out again.
Yeah, but he
In-
did. This has been
It was just last year.
she.
Right, so this would be it's just
I
a
didn't-
point
I
of
didn't-
order.
I
It would
got-
be a second rental in the same year, and so, we
Yeah,
don't
maybe.
allow that.
If- I'll have to.
Next
look
time,
at the
come in
date.
and
I
just,
know, I
we'll
didn't
make
even
it,
think of
we'll
it.
make it official by having a
Yeah,
vote on it
Okay.
if
but
we need
that-
to.
If he gets a renter, it's just, he's just looking. And that's all I know.
Can I have a motion to accept Barbara's report? Richard makes a motion. Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much, Barbara. Strategy and cultural planning, Barbara Kowalski.
Yes, on the strategy and cultural planning, I've updated the activity sheet as of this morning. And there's some on the table over there that those who didn't get it. If anybody needs one, we can have one made for you. But please watch 97. That should be on there today. And the bulletin boards. And watch for updates and the sign-up sheets will be at the back. And if you see a committee that you'd like to help with, please call the lead. Like Pat Lynch does a lot of things by herself. She could definitely use some helpers. So if you're interested, please contact the lead for any activity. Oh, and just we're working on a live band for the next dance. No? Oh. 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 doing. This is a band. We're using all the DJs here. We're using Rich, and we're using Warren, and we use Dave. So we do utilize all three. Right. Yes, correct.
This was an occasion where I
This
guess
was
they
an
wanted
occasion-
to have a live band.
This live band was, as I understand, was members of all the communities. They could be from any of the sections, and they were the band members. And they played at all the different sections. Next, let's do exterior plantings. Sure. Yes, you have two things. Get up. Yeah.
Dave, want to do movie night?
Yes, okay. This Friday, we're going to make the attempt for movie night. It'll start somewhere around 6:30 or a little after when it gets dark. And it'll last till probably a couple hours. Obviously, the length of the movie. Let's see.
And we'll see how it goes. This is a dry run, but I
Yeah.
think you were talking about the Avengers. Was that one?
We can do the Avengers.
I
or
also
this-
have As Good as It Gets with Jack Nicholson and Helen Hunt, which is kind of a funny one,
And the one that we talked about earlier was called Black Widow.
and Black Widow. So what we really like to do is the reason we're showing some of these action ones is we want to test the graphics and the picture quality the first time out with an outdoor screen and the new LCD. We've seen it inside,
Right.
and it's very cool. But this is our first time trying it outside. So we'll be looking to take suggestions from people about the various kind of movies that you want to watch going forward. It's another one of those things where the more people we have that know how to set the thing up and use it, the more times we can set the thing up and use it. And it's not that difficult. I say that because I've helped Dave a couple of times.
We're also gonna have,
But it's there for us to use as often as we want to. And so we'll be looking for suggestions on movies and those kinds of things. I'm going to be looking to see if there's a way for us to get our cable system out there, because then we could do streaming, and there's a
Okay.
million movies on streaming. And
Right.
between us all, I'm sure we've got every streaming function that there is available to mankind.
And we're also going to be bringing out our popcorn machine in the
Yep.
back.
Yep, the pub will be trying. That'll be the maiden voyage of our donated popcorn machine. So, I'm told they have arrived, but they haven't been set up and tested yet. So we don't want to poison the entire community the first time out with that. Yeah, we might need volunteer testers of the margarita. All those willing to volunteer.
All right.
We'll be in touch.
So hopefully we'll see you this Friday night, tomorrow night, around 6:30, 6:45. We're going to start up.
Weather permitting. Santina.
Okay, another baby step. Trying to get something together out of the clubhouse and the new Florida Follies. The reason that I picked this is because they are a 501 charitable organization that helps children in our community, which is always a beautiful thing. This is a bunch of women who were past Radio City Hall Rockettes and past professional dancers, and they put on a show in Fort Lauderdale at the Parker House, in Boca at the Spanish River community, and somewhere else. So this year I have spoken to them and got group rates to go to see the Florida Follies on March 27th, which is a Sunday afternoon at 2 p.m. We are going to have carpooling available if people don't want to drive their own car there. We're going to be meeting at the clubhouse, and you can have the sign-in sheet, and this way we can assign you a ride if you need one. And sign up. This is a great thing. Get out on a Sunday afternoon, go see a show, and enjoy. The other.
Wait,
one of
hold
the-
on, hold on.
Yeah.
What's the minimum number of people that you
I
need?
have to have 20 to 25 tickets sold,
And how much is each ticket?
$32.
And
And
when
this
do you
is
need to
on
know by?
97.
And when do you need to know by?
ASAP, since it's already getting to the end of February. She is going to block 20 seats for me in the upper level, which I have chosen because of COVID. I really didn't want to have us down in the orchestra level. There is not a balcony. It's a gradual auditorium. So wheelchair accessible, no getting dizzy. You're not on the balcony. It's just a gradual plane going up. And I have picked the rear section of the theater, which you could see the stage from anywhere. Gail? Oh, you went? Wonderful. Wonderful. I thought so for the first time that we're going out to pick something that benefits our community, even though we're doing it outside of Section 1. So does anybody have any questions about the Florida Follies? It's going to be at the Spanish River High School in Boca, so it's very local. We don't have to drive to Fort Lauderdale. It's a 10-minute drive and we're there.
And one point is the normal price is $35, so we're getting a discount of $3. So
Right, for
That's-
being group rate. So that's, if anybody has any other questions about that, I really hope that you sign up and enjoy a great
Santina?
afternoon.
Did we talk about carpool?
Yes, we did.
That's all I.
Yes,
And the sign up sheet will even be in the back.
yes. There is a sign up sheet already. And if you need a carpool, you just circle yes, put your phone number so that I know you need a ride and I'll assign you to somebody. That would be great. Well, as soon as we have enough people together, if we can get the 20, 25 people together, then I'm going to definitely be calling people and finding out, are you driving yourself? Do you have room in your car? And match people up. This is the
Okay.
first time since I've been here in 3.5 years that we're doing something outside of Section 1. So I'd really like to see it become a success because we really like to do things like that.
Okay,
Not
we need
that-
to,
Just going out.
we're up on 12 o'clock here, so we need to move along.
Okay, the only other thing I want to talk to you about is look on Channel 97. We have a mature driving course going on. If you take it, you save 15% on your auto insurance. And this is for every single state, no matter where you live. If you come here and you take the class, you get the certificate that day, you go home to wherever you live, Rhode Island, Pennsylvania, New York, New Jersey, wherever, you give them the certificate and you will get 15% off on your insurance. We have the TV, the DVR, the instructor is coming, the sign-up sheet is in the back.
Okay, thank you. Barbara? You all set? I don't know. Electrical issues.
Okay, next is exterior plantings and patio. No, we have not talked about it.
Well,
no, we
just
didn't.
that you're taking it over.
Yeah, you just know that I'm taking it over. You don't know what I'm going to say. Yes, of course I'm changing things. Let's see. I would like to make a motion that no sprinklers are moved by contractors, only by association personnel, because of some of the problems that we've had recently. Contractors have been just changing them to where they're not supposed to be, etc. And it's caused a lot of problems. So therefore, I make this motion.
We have a second? Barbara Milano seconds. Any conversation? All signal
Well,
yes.
I had just, I would not have a problem if we had a note in it said it was an approved, if we had somebody that was approved to do a plumber,
No.
to look
No.
at it and do it. But,
No.
if we don't have a guy here for 2 weeks and there's a leak,
So
We have
could we
two
amend
people
it
that-
to say, or the board's designee?
Okay.
That way, our people aren't here or they're not capable of doing a complex task, you can have someone else done, but with permission of the board. All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you.
Okay. Next is, I will be putting out a new patio and plantings request. It's being updated. I have more information on it. For instance, a list of what plants are poisonous to your animals, since we have a lot of animals around here. And there's quite a few of them. So, we'll be putting that out in the next week or so. And that's it.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to accept Barbara's report? Bill Hooks, may I have a second? Second by Janine. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, Barbara. Richard Gigliotti, thank you for your patience. You're up.
Okay, we've been talking about the dock for so long that we just went out again to get an update on the quotes because of the cost of the materials, and the cost of materials have really gone up. We had two quotes that came back. One is for $20,400, and the other one is for $12,297.
What was the first one, Richard, again, please?
Well, $20,400, and that's for PT, pressure treated wood. The second one, we didn't add onto that any kind of painting or staining. There would be another roughly $3,000 to have them do it. But we have, Dwight has people around here that are interested in helping in this. And if need be, we could always ask them to come in, and the wood would be delivered here and they could stain and paint it right here. So that would save us some money. So the cost would still be only $12,297 plus the cost of some stain. So that's where we are on the dock.
Well, we have, and I put it in your mailbox. We have a proposal by Dwight Eastman regarding a voluntary rebuild of the dock. The cost of that, and he did quite a job of details, and you'll see it, including invoices for what it would cost for the work. The bottom line is that the materials necessary would cost $3,000 or under. At the last board meeting, we discussed this whole issue, and there was quite a lot of discussion about whether or not we could have volunteers do this kind of work. Before I ask if Dwight wants to come up and do an overview of what his proposal is, I want to feed back to you that I did speak in great detail with our insurance company. And while the insurance company representative, the agent, was being very honest, was decidedly unenthusiastic about a voluntary project of this nature, he said there are two ways that you can do this. And by the way, Bob, you'd have been proud of me. I had my sheet with the paper, the words you gave me about work done by people not in this field in a professional level. I don't have it with me, but I said specifically in that way. And he said there are two issues. One is the issue about whether the volunteers get hurt. He said that is a liability that, you know, the community would have to bear. And for that, like in anything you do, you can get people to sign waivers or approve things, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're not going to get sued for it. If someone gets hurt, they believe it's through some negligence on the part of the community, then, you know, you're not going to fully protect yourself. But he said the one thing you have to do is, if people are going to do volunteer work, they must come in front of the board and they have to state themselves specifically that they are indeed volunteering to do this work, understanding that it's a volunteer position and that they're not going to hold the community harmless should something happen through no negligence of the community in the course of doing that volunteer work. He said, I'm not sure how much that buys you, but it does buy you at least some evidence that people knew that they were doing this, that they knew that it was at their own risk, etc. The other thing he said is that the other piece of of liability is not for the people who do it, but 20 years down the road, when somebody falls through the dock or they fall off and they say it was poorly constructed and it's the fault of the community, you don't have a contractor or a company to go after for that liability. The liability would be borne by the community itself. Now, this community has done 1 million volunteer projects over the years. We've not gone through the official formal formalities that I just spoke of in terms of volunteer stuff, but by just having volunteers do that work, we've always taken on, whether we recognize it or not, the liability. If someone were to get hurt doing that work, we would have been liable for any lawsuit that happens. So that happens when people are volunteering to do stuff, and it's always, whether it's been really recognized before, it's always been a known risk that we've taken in all of the myriad of volunteer work projects we've done in here. So the question really comes down for the board A, and we'll hear from Dwight because he has a different approach than I think what the RFPs were calling for, which was a full rebuild. Whether or not the community is willing to take those risks now that we know them and we have to sort of stick our nose in them and face them and recognize that they're there, whether we want to do that. And, you know, with those volunteers for $3,000 of materials versus the $20,000 and the hiring of an external person, it must be stated, by the way, and this is probably not going to make me the most popular person on the planet, but one of the RFPs is from someone who's not a licensed and insured contractor, it's my understanding. And this is a person who's done work for us in the past, has done a lot of work in all the sections, is well known and all of that stuff. But, you know, we can look at our volunteers, or you can look at him, and then we have this other company who I think we've had trouble getting a hold of. So it's not as easy and straightforward a conversation as one would hope we would have. With that, Dwight, would you like to just talk about what your findings are and your proposal is for us in terms of the work? Thank you.
Yeah, the existing dock, as you know, the flooring is starting to rot. We've already got 3 or 4 boards that have rotted out, and the other boards are showing their age. We could just replace those 3 or 4 boards and get by for a year or 2, but really the whole floor should be replaced. It's not rocket science. We're not building a watch here. We're lifting a couple of boards. We're putting new boards in. We're lifting a couple boards. We're putting new boards in. We have to do it very carefully. We do not want to take the chance of destabilizing the structure. Okay? You can't even go out there with big pry bars and start prying these boards off. You run the risk of damaging the floor joists underneath. You got to pull each and every nail. Not a big deal. Easy to do. Take some time. It would take us about, I'm saying 3 half days, depending on weather, of course. 1 day preparation and 2 days to remove and replace the floor. I've given you the material that would be used. We could get cheaper material. This is top of the line material. It's less than $3,000. The people that would be helping are volunteers, yes, but they're specific volunteers. They're volunteers that have experience and training in construction, in using tools and whatnot. You can never rule out the liability question. But I mean, we could get hit with a falling piece of space junk out there today too, you know. You don't, We've been up on roofs here, putting screens over the air vents and whatnot. We've gone around with concrete, patching up all the walls to try and keep the rodents out. We've painted bridges. We've stood on step ladders, putting up Christmas trees and all kinds of things. There's always a liability, but I've been involved in God only knows how many volunteer, not-for-profit organizations. And it was always taken for granted if you're doing something that the organization has approved, you're under their umbrella. Certainly, we can sign, do whatever the hell you want, but you got to be pretty careful. Come trash and treasure next year. We're lugging heavy cabinets and we're doing stuff. Are we going to sign off on that? I hope not. This is a simple, straightforward job. It has to be undertaken with care and it has to be undertaken with the environment in mind. We can't be dropping stuff into the lake and doing all kinds of things, okay? All of the sawing of materials and everything will be done on shore. So again, the decision's yours. Do you want to spend $3,000 or do you want to spend $15,000?
I've got a question about the joists underneath the, I think we should also replace the joists as well, because that's another 50 years old as well. So as far as safety is
yeah,
concerned, I would probably recommend that as well.
I've taken and a number of us have taken a look at them as carefully as we can. Without a boat, it's a little difficult to be right underneath there, but they look to be in quite good condition. Okay, if there is a floor joist that is somewhat deteriorated, we will simply scab a new piece onto the side of that. Okay, a new floor will get you by for the next 10 or 15 years, by which time you will need to replace all the structure underneath. The group I'm talking about is not going to get into replacing floor joists and things like that. This is simply to replace the floor, and which in my opinion is all that's required right now. Yes, you could replace the whole structure. That's up to you, but I don't think you need it.
Oh, I think, I'm sorry.
Can we have one meeting, please, ladies and gentlemen? You need a microphone. Sorry. Jerry, can we have one meeting, please?
I thought that Rich had the joists inspected when they had given you the estimate, and that they said that the joists underneath, although they were 24 inches apart, were in good condition, and that all we needed were the floorboards. And my question to you is, would we need anything done with the railing? Or would it be just the top of the railing and the floorboards, considering that the joists underneath are in good shape?
Yes.
One at a time. Let's, Richard, did the folks that were out here giving you estimates make
You're
comments
right.
about the
The
joists?
the estimates that we received were also for all the railings, okay? The 4x4s coming up, the top railings and the support railings underneath. They looked at the supports on the columns and they said they really wouldn't be able to determine that until they took the decking off, and then they would look, and then that would be somewhat of an additional cost. But the costs that we gave here are for all the railings, all the decking, and to make a ramp entering onto the dock,
Which is really needed.
which is really needed. Okay, that's been needed for a while. So which is really needed. And also, the staining and also doing everything else. The only thing it didn't include was the supports that are on the columns, and they will be inspected once they take everything off.
Just if I could address that particular question. Is this working okay? Yeah. I have very carefully looked at the railings. There is no instability there that I can determine. The top of the railing
Talk right
is-
into the top of the microphone.
Sorry, the top board on the railing needs to be replaced, and that was included in the proposal that you have before you. The other thing that we would do is using hurricane ties, when we're finished putting the floor down, we would attach each of those uprights, screw the upright to the floor to really strengthen it. It doesn't really require strengthening, but it certainly won't hurt, in my opinion. But only the top rail would be replaced.
You can give it back now, Santina. You can give it back. Are there any other questions or comments from the board at this point? Any suggestions on how to proceed? Thanks, Dwight. Appreciate that. You did a great job in terms of the work. That you should be able to find a copy of it in your mailbox. How would you like to proceed, Richard? I'm looking to you for first comment, since you've taken on this project for the last couple of months.
But you know, I still have a concern of working over the water. Okay. If we're volunteering to do, you know, put a coating on the parking lot or do rollers on the bridges, that's one thing. But being out over the water, and I don't care if we're going to take one or two items out. We've had other situations where people have gotten hurt here in volunteering. I mean, seriously injured. And, you know, it cost us quite a bit of money.
But we don't have anybody who's licensed insured who's willing to do the work.
That's exactly.
No,
Right.
no, but the one person, okay, here, he's looking to get insurance. So once he gets insurance, we'll know more. But I don't know. I haven't talked to him for, I guess the last time I talked to him was last week. Janine, what did he?
I know, 3 seconds. Hello? He hasn't addressed that issue. And I haven't heard from him that he was planning on doing that, as you said. But if anything, we've been back to him twice for quotes, and he has never mentioned that. So I don't know what with the additional fee for that. Do we want to wait to ask him and wait again for him? I mean, he's put in two quotes. I give
And
up.
meanwhile, the price goes up and up
Yeah.
and up.
So the material went up substantially.
Yeah, and also, you know, when I talked to some of the suppliers, they said, if you don't do it right now, just hold off. You can hold off for a couple of months. Everything is liable to come down again. Because
Or
of-
not.
Yeah,
Or
or
not.
not, or go up, but they're hoping that things would come down. So, but the last time I talked to Vito was 2 weeks ago, when he came and you said he came and gave you the information. Last time I talked to him, I brought it up because we had talked about it at our meeting, and I did bring it up to him, and he said he was looking at the time.
When did you go to Home Depot with him? That was just last
About
week, right?
last week, was it? Last week?
Yeah, last week.
Okay, last week.
So my question is,
Hey, finish your question. Oh. Bob?
Can you not get a rider? I'll ask it the right way. Can you get a rider on your insurance policy for liability coverage for an unlicensed contractor? For, let's say the guy says, it's going to take me 2 days. You're getting coverage of liability coverage on a contractor for 2 days. You may find a rider on your insurance policy is $1,000 or $2,000.
So I neglected to ask the question that way when I talked to the insurance guy, and I certainly can call him. What I did ask was, what if we put people on the payroll so that they were covered with workers' comp and our liability umbrella policy? And he said, you can do that. However, not all that I did that with, in my mind, with reference not to the contractor, but to our volunteer group. And because our volunteer group is not going to all have the ability to work in the US because they're retired citizens from another country, that wasn't going to scratch the itch for us. You know, so I didn't ask him, and I could call him and ask him if I could get a special rider on a contractor. I don't know why he wouldn't get his own, right? You know, his own job insurance coverage, but you know, he hasn't have to do that other places in these communities. And it's not like he's killing himself for, you know, getting work these days. Everybody's got more work than they know what to do with. And again, we still come back to the decision on whether or not I need to go that path, because we have an option with the volunteers within the community that are willing to do it at a cost of about $3,000, or the option of continuing to explore finding a way for a contractor to do it for 20 to 25 grand, let's say. And
Yeah,
that's
well,
the
no, a
conundrum for
statement.
me.
I mean, I love the second guy, but he's not licensed. So therefore, if he's not licensed, there's not a lot of difference between an unlicensed contractor then to me and a volunteer group. So, I mean, I would go
Yeah,
for,
Except for 10 grand.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that 10
Barbara,
grand that we don't have would be lovely to spend.
Yeah. Barbara, I agree with you. Okay, but if we're going to do that for this one, then we really need to clamp down on all non-licensed contractors coming in here.
I would
I
like to
think
see
we
that
do.
done, period.
Pardon?
I would like to see that done, period.
Yeah, I think that's what we'd have to do.
Exactly.
If you were ignorant and you could testify that way under oath
Right.
and have that mean something to you, you might get away with it. But if you know up front, if the board knows up front that someone's not licensed and you hired them, holy Christmas.
Especially this
Right.
thing where you're hiring somebody and then you find out they're right. We hire people that are using other people's licenses.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, it's not,
Yeah.
but I mean, let's try to keep it on an even keel.
Yeah.
It's not as though this community and the board and the residents and the everybody hasn't used unlicensed, uninsured contractors knowingly on a whole bunch of stuff. The difference is every time you do it, you need to understand that you're incurring a significant risk. And as the community and the world we live in becomes more and more litigious, more and more likely to sue for damages, more and more you know, sharks out there in the legal profession looking to make a $5,000 claim into a $500,000 or a $5 million claim. You know, you have to understand that we are taking a risk for someone to get hurt or for us to be sued for some significant amount. And the insurance company can indeed, in the case that Bob's talking about, it's my understanding they can go, not covering that, not covering that. Oh, you got $1 million in your reserve fund? Guess what? Not anymore. So it's not just an easy decision to make here. All fraught with danger one way or another. And I don't have a real resolution for it. We don't have a contractor that's licensed and insured saying they want to do the project. We have a volunteer group who's willing to do it and willing to say, you know, I'm a volunteer and I understand there's some risks in here and, you know, I'm still volunteering. We're not asking for people to sign their lives away or any of that stuff in this. We're just saying they have to be officially I'm sorry, you come up to the microphone, Tim. I know you've been patient up there, but we can't hear you on the Zoom. Yeah, because we can't hear it on the Zoom. The people in the room can hear it, but the people on the Zoom can't hear it.
Well, they ain't here.
As residents, you're not only a resident, you are an owner, therefore you can work on it and be covered by the policies already in place.
That's not what the insurance agent
Uh,
told me. I'll check with him again.
that's it. It's-
You know, I will check with him again, but that's not.
it's
been-
why you can do
because
stuff
it's-
in your house.
Your house.
Right.
Yeah, this is a common element, but I'll check with him again.
I believe you.
Uh, No, I didn't. She said they checked it before. I'll be happy, hey, a phone call's easy.
Right.
A phone call's easy, and postponing a project by a couple of days while you make a phone call on a subject of this kind of liability is not a problem for me. So I need
like
to,
that.
right. In more ways than one. Yeah. Yes.
I agree.
Yeah. No, we don't. I mean, let's not blow it out of proportion. All the guy from the insurance company said was that that people who are going to volunteer need to do it at a board meeting, a sanctioned board meeting, and say, yes, I'm volunteering to do that work. And that by doing that, it's a public statement that they're doing it as a volunteer, not as an employee, and that they, that as part of that process, that they're going to be, they're not employees and therefore under the protection of the community should they have a heart attack while they're out on the dock. Now, if it's a negligence issue and we cheap out on materials, or one volunteer puts a nail through the other guy's leg or something like that, then there's a negligence issue, and that's going to come back to a community coverage kind of a thing. But I'm just telling you what the insurance company said, that people who want to volunteer, in order to give them coverage under the liability insurance, need to make a statement that I'm a volunteer and I'm willing to be a volunteer. That's all. It's as simple as that. You don't have to give away your children. You don't even, he didn't even say you had to sign a paper. We have people sign a paper to go to the pool today. Every time you enter the pool, you sign a paper. Every time you enter in here, you sign a paper that says you understand that you're at increased risk for COVID and you accept responsibility. Does that mean that if Pat Lynch kisses you on the cheek and you get COVID tomorrow and she's got it too, that you don't have the right to sue us for a liability? No, you can sue for whatever you want, but it's a recognition of personal responsibility in a situation. That's all we're looking for. So let's not let it get to be some big, sign your life away kind of thing. That's not what it is. Give me a day or two to ask the insurance guy and ask him on two things I was going to ask him. One was on a rider for a non-insured contractor to do the work. The other was on, what was the other one? Shoot, I wrote it down. Where is it? No, we already got his word on the volunteers. What was the other one? Darn it. Huh? Please don't get me any more confused than I am. I write notes in circles here and shoot, where is it? Oh, insurance rider, or whether owners, it's Tim. Why didn't Tim Ryan stand up and say, pick me, pick me? Tim Ryan's suggestion that as owners, co-owners, that they would have the ability to do that work and be covered under the umbrella liability of the community just by way of being owners and therefore only 1/248th. I'm going to ask the insurance guy those two questions. And then we're going to have a special meeting, probably we'll say maybe like first of next week, that has two things on the docket. One is this conversation and the other is an update on the pool situation. He didn't say no to either one, Dwight. He didn't say no to either one. All he said is, if you're going to use volunteers, do it. He said, if you're going to use volunteers, do it this way. If you're going to use a contractor, do it this way. He didn't say, don't do that. Don't use volunteers. Don't do that. Don't use an uninsured thing. I mean, he gave us options. And by the way, neither one of them had a dollar sign next to it in terms of putting money. He didn't say, I can give you a rider and for $15,000, I can cover this. He didn't say any of that. So I mean, let's just get the answers and then we'll make a decision. And if we want to take the risk with it, we take the risk with it one way, or we take the risk with it the other way. Or basically, it's time to tear the dock down and do without because we can't afford to get it fixed and we can't afford to replace it. You know, but let's get the information on the table on those two questions and then we'll move on.
With all due respect, this is a question that involves something that's legal. And the board, whether it's the entire board or it's the executive committee of the board, President, Vice President, Secretary, President, could do this without making this a public meeting, just do it in private.
Well, we still would have to come back on a vote. We still have to come back on a vote on which way to go and the selection of the people that are going to do the work. Whether I'm required to do that or not in this kind of a case with this kind of interest, I would of myself say I would advocate it needs to be a public meeting so people know why we're doing it, what and who's voting for it and who's not voting for it. And it's all transparent for everybody to see. Is there any, the board members have any problems with that?
I do not.
All right, so we're going to table it. Yeah, yeah. We'll be back. We'll be back within 5 business days
Yeah.
to make a decision on this, whether or not we're ready on the pool thing.
Do we have
Within
money
5
for
days.
this? Do
What?
we have money to cover this?
We have, yes, if the board decides that that's what they want to spend it on. Yes, we have
Okay,
money
we
for
have
that.
money,
We
okay.
have an emergency fund, which has monies in it. We have
Not for long if they're going. Well, there's still, you said there was 50-some
there's
thousand.
56
If there's
or
25, we
59
still
there's
have enough money
56
to
or
do this.
59
Yeah. Okay,
There's
thank you.
56 or 59, $56,000 in the emergency fund, of which we're going to use 19,000. This is to me, the dock as it stands today is a safety issue. We have people who don't follow signs, who go around things, and people are visiting. We have who knows who shows up to fish in this lake every now and then, and they walk out there and somebody gets hurt. Now there's no question about being liable or not. We'll be liable. We need to fix it. We know it's broken. We need to do what we need to do in a reasonable time frame, and it's been a long time. We've been talking about this since last fall, or even in the summer. So we need to get it fixed and make a decision. And if we're not going to do anything about it, let the board go on record that we're not going to do anything about it. And then we take on the responsibility for the liability should somebody get hurt out there. I don't think that's the way we'll go, but let's do it the right way. Let's get the board on record and let's move forward. All right. Yeah, we're going to move on real quick. I'm going to skip the electric cars for now because Dwight's got enough on his hands. I'm going to go to I want to make a statement. We have an election coming up in the month of March. Barbara, are you going to be able to go through the mailing and that kind of thing? Great. In the meantime, there are four spots on the board that are up for reelection. I am up for reelection. I've chosen to raise my hand again for reelection as a director. We decide on whose officers after the election. Janine, you're up. And you have decided to run. Okay. And Barbara Milano, who had to leave because she has outside people who are taken off today, is also up for reelection, and she's decided that she's going to run. And we have Mr. Bill Hooks.
Not for long. No, I decided I will not be running. It's been an honor to serve everybody and everything, but it's been 7 long years. And I've got some health problems that's been kicking up. So I said, okay, you guys got to me, finally got to me. So enough is enough. But it's been fun. And I appreciate everybody's help because everybody here is great. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Bill,
I do have one more
He's
meeting.
got one more meeting.
And I do have
At
an,
least we'll try to
and-
squeeze a few more in
and
there.
I do have an answer to Dwight since it's time to have fun. I did talk to an officer one time, and his comment about speeding was, if it's under 9, you're fine. If it's over 9, you're mine. Okay.
Okay, well, thanks, Bill, and we'll say more about it, but thank you. And Nancy, it's a team effort, and one person's involved, the whole family's involved, and we appreciate your hard work and your dedication and putting up with all the the grief you've gotten over time, and all the really you're that strong type that just gets in the mix and helps and volunteers, shows up and all that stuff. So it's appreciated for your work. I probably am being too kind, but that's just who I am. Do we have two? So we have two new residents that have decided to raise their hand for spots on the board. And so, there's no such thing as a done deal. We have 4 seats. There are 6 people who are running, 5 people, sorry, 5 people who are running. And so we'll look at these 2 folks as part of the greater whole, and we'll hear more from them as we go on. Santina Rizzo has decided to raise her hand to help and to run for the board. And Tim Ryan has decided to raise his hand and volunteer to help and run for the board. Both of them are excellent candidates. Both of them, without a doubt, have the best interests of the community at heart. And I have 100% confidence that either one of them would be a strong addition, or both would be strong additions to the board in the new year coming up. And I wish you both luck. We'll have a meet and greet coming up in early March that will both Saturday, what is it, second? Saturday, March 6th. We'll 9:30 to 11:30. March 5th. Right. And that will be to introduce new people who've come into the community, and board members and prospective board members. And Pat is leading the charge. I've got my hand raised to have her make me do whatever legally she needs me to do to help. And anyone else who'd like to help organize that, I'm sure she'd be happy for a few extra hands and both prep and breakdown afterwards. And she has to go kiss. I'm taking my hand down. All right. Well, thank you, Pat, in advance, and we'll see more from the candidates at that point. Tonight is a full moon party starting at 5:30 at poolside. Bring your own with you. Bring a snack. Bring something to drink. It's supposed to be a nice night, so cornhole included. Excellent. And ladder ball. So yeah, come on over. Talk to your neighbors. Get them out of the house for an hour to come over and enjoy a little bit of a nice evening with us. I'm ready for a motion.
For the shuffleboard players, we do have a down in the States challenge with this cornhole, so.
All right, I'm looking for a motion to adjourn. Thank you all for your patience and your attention at this meeting. Can I have a motion?
I will make a motion to adjourn.
Janine
I'll
has a
second.
motion. Dave has a second. All in favor? Thank you very much, everybody.
Okay, there's no meeting next month since we went 2.5 hours. We covered 2 meetings.